Sally, what do you make of this and the fact that, you know, these aged children are able to go to their doctor and are given a prescription without their parents knowing?
Well, I think it's a really positive reflection of how far we've come in this country. Because the best thing you can do as a parent for your child is teach them to be confident, particularly when we're talking about sex. They have to value themselves enough to choose their partner carefully and to protect themselves. Now, the first person who they talk to when they're thinking about being sexually active may not be their mother or father. You know, I think a lot of people, you don't immediately think mum when you're thinking about sex. But if you teach them to be an advocate for themselves and they go to their GP and they talk to their GP, who's a very well-educated person and who can give them the tools to protect themselves, I think that's really good.
But a lot of parents would be horrified by the fact, though, that, you know, children as young as 12 or 13 could be going to a doctor and getting this without them even knowing about it.
It's not candy. They're not giving them out sort of willy-nilly. They're talking to children very carefully, giving them the pros and cons and making a medical decision.
Anne, what do you think about that? Is it progress?
Well, it's certainly progress that we're bringing down the rate of teenage pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy. Of course it is, but that's a bit like saying it's better to amputate one limb than two. There's common sense. I mean, the listeners, the viewers' responses were very interesting. Common sense tells us, if I tell you an anecdote about our not our current 12-year-old, but our son when he was 12, he cut his thumb badly, and we lived right opposite a health clinic. And we had a lot of people coming to lunch, so I said, just nip over there and show them. They couldn't put a sticking plaster on without a letter from us giving them permission, but they could have given him a packet of condoms. Now, common sense tells us there's something wrong there. And historically, the age of consent is a very interesting thing, because it was really the sort of first feminist legislation in this country in the late 19th century, women campaigning for young girls to protect them. And what we're now doing is undermining that protection of that age of consent. And we've got a sort of schizophrenia going on here as a society, because we get terribly exercised about Rotherham and Rochdale and Oxford and all those scandals and complain that the police didn't protect those 12-year-olds. But in a sense, how are the police to know? You know, if 12-year-olds are being given contraception, then we are saying, in effect, we don't have a legal age of consent, so how can we protect those children?
It's a good point, isn't it, Sally? There is confusion there. Under 16, youngsters are not supposed to be having sex. No one is supposed to be having sex with them. That is illegal. And yet, isn't there an implicit sanction to that by GPs, grown-ups, giving them contraceptive pills?
I think it's naive to think that because the government they've put out an age of consent, that all children at parties and the weekends are going to think, oh no, I'm not yet 16, I'm not going to do this. Of course they're going to.
But isn't it important to make
the age of consent is to protect children from older predators and to hold those adults to account if they do inappropriate things. So I think it's naive to think that children, A, are going to listen to that, and B, are going to listen to their parents when they say, oh, don't have sex. You need to educate them so they know what all of their options are and they make an informed decision.
And realistically, though, you know, even though in an ideal world we might say, OK, nobody has sex until they're 16, if this does happen, teenage pregnancies are falling, isn't it better that there is this capability for them to go and prevent that happening?
It is better that teenage pregnancies are falling, yes, but there are other consequences of having sex at 12, 13, 14, 15. There are STDs, of course, but there's also the emotional effects of starting. I mean, some years ago it was found that 3/4 of girls who'd had underage sex admitted that it was too young. That's the ones that admitted it. 3/4 of them afterwards said, yes, I had sex too young. And the best protection for children, I know this is a sort of idealistic thing, but the best protection for children is a very good relationship with their parents. And if we are systematically undermining that relationship, which we are, if we're saying we can do something as important as give contraception to children and not involve their parents, as a society, we're pulling the rug out from under parents and we're undermining the most important relationship to protect them.
Okay, what if your parents aren't protecting you?
Well,
we have to protect those children. You talk about Rochdale.
Of course we do, but as a society, the big brushstroke is that we're not going in a direction to protect children if we are systematically undermining the parental relationship.
When you arrived back here, what came back to you?
Just memory after memory after memory of, well, so many things. How I felt shooting certain things. We are going to certain locations as we film this documentary for the 50th anniversary.